So a very short amount of time, I thought he was a good guy, but he just went and turned berserk.
The guy was like tearing him to pieces with his mouth. So I told him, get off, it's like, and the guy just kept eating the other guy away, like ripping his skin. Police officer came over, told him several times to get off, and the police officer climbed over the divider and got in front of him and said, get off. He told him several times, and the guy just stood his head up like that with a piece of flesh in his mouth and growled.
On May 26, 2012, just after 2 p.m., Miami police officer Jose Ramirez responded to a call about an attack along the MacArthur Causeway in Miami, Florida. Upon arrival, he was met with a gruesome sight. 2 men were embroiled in a bloody scuffle on the pavement. The officer tried to intervene, but the attacker, 31-year-old Rudy Eugene, did not relent. He was forced to shoot Eugene in order to save the life of 65-year-old Ronald Poppo. The attack made international headlines, and Eugene became known as the Miami Zombie and Causeway Cannibal. But the question remained, what caused Eugene to act out so viciously? What had Ronald Poppo done to provoke such an attack? Hello, and welcome back to M7 Crime Storytime, where we cover disturbing and twisted cases from around the world. Today, we dive into the disturbing case of Ronald Poppo. Miami is the second most populous city in the state of Florida, with a population of 442,000 people as of 2020. It's also the county seat of Miami-Dade County. Miami is known for its miles of golden beaches, dazzling nightlife, and cultural diversity. It's affectionately known as the gateway to Latin America, as 70% of its population is Hispanic. Miami offers tourists a real taste of adventure, whether one's looking forward to enjoying a lazy beach vacation or an upbeat carnival-like atmosphere. However, Miami still has one of the highest crime rates in the United States. In 2012, Miami became known for a rather grisly crime. It was Saturday, May 26, 2012, Memorial Day weekend, when the Miami Police Department received a distressing call from a cyclist named Larry Vega just after 2 p.m. According to Vega, he'd been cycling near the Metro Mover platform along the MacArthur Causeway in Miami when he came across a grisly scene. Vega told the dispatcher that one of the men had beaten the other to a bloody pulp and was attempting to kill him. The first officer to respond was Jose Ramirez, who had been the closest to the scene. As Ramirez approached the small group of onlookers, he saw for himself the extent of the attack. He stepped back in shock and pulled out his service pistol. He called out to the attacker and hollered at him to stop what he was doing. The man turned and growled at Ramirez and the onlookers with what appeared to be flesh dangling from his mouth. Ramirez fired a warning shot. However, that did nothing to stop the man who continued to gnaw at his helpless victim. Ramirez called out another firm warning and then shot the attacker another 4 times. This eventually stopped the man, who collapsed on the pavement next to his victim. Paramedics soon arrived after and pronounced the attacker dead at the scene. The victim was still alive, but in critical condition. He was rushed to the Jackson Memorial Hospital for immediate care. The now dead attacker was transported to the city mortuary as more police officers joined Officer Ramirez and tried to put together the pieces of the puzzling incident. At the crime scene, investigators found the meager belongings of the victim. They identified him as 65-year-old Ronald Poppo. Apart from the victim's belongings were several torn pages of a Bible. The attacker didn't have anything that could be used to identify him immediately. He was completely naked. Officers from the police department fanned out to search along the MacArthur Causeway as they'd received several calls from motorists about a man behaving strangely. According to the reports, an African-American male was walking along the causeway in a daze. He then started to strip off his clothes and tear pages out of a book. Other witnesses alleged that after stripping off his clothes, he started to swing from some of the light poles as he made his way westward toward the Miami Herald building. This gave them a starting point, and officers began to search for clues. Along the way, they found discarded clothes and shoes, torn pages from a Bible, and a driver's license belonging to 31-year-old Rudy Eugene. After putting his details into the system, investigators discovered that Eugene's car, a purple 1995 Chevrolet Caprice with the Haitian flag painted on, had been impounded earlier that day for being parked illegally near the Miami Beach area. Investigators visited the car impound and searched through Eugene's vehicle. Inside, they found 5 empty bottles of water and a second Bible. Investigators divided into 3 separate teams to find out more about what had led to the attack and if there's a connection between Poppo and Eugene. One team visited the Jackson Memorial Hospital to find out about Poppo. A second team started to collect surveillance footage from the area that could reveal what led up to the violent attack. And the third team went to find out more about the attacker, Eugene. At the hospital, investigators were told that Poppo suffered severe damage to his face. Around 80% of his face had been chewed off during the attack. Poppo was missing both of his eyebrows, his nose, parts of his cheeks, and forehead. He also had lost his left eye, which had been gouged out by Eugene, and his right eye had been severely damaged, rendering him completely blind. As surgeons worked to save the man, investigators looked into his background to find a link between him and Eugene. Eventually, they were able to make contact with his family, who had become estranged from him. According to reports, Poppo's daughter, 44-year-old Janice Poppo de Bello, was shocked when her family was contacted by the police and heard that her father Ronald had been attacked so viciously. They had assumed he died after he disappeared without a trace decades earlier. Ronald Edward Poppo was born on May 17, 1947, and raised in Brooklyn, New York. He attended the prestigious Stuyvesant High School in Manhattan and was considered to be rather intelligent. At school, he was a member of the Latin Club and worked alongside the school counselor in the guidance office. After graduating from high school, Poppo enrolled in the City College in New York. However, he dropped out in 1966. After much hard work, investigators learned that he'd married and had 1 child. Ronald's family, it seemed, were equally as private as he was and didn't raise any alarm when he disappeared. His sister, Antoinette Poppo, told news outlets that they tried to find him, but after several unsuccessful attempts, they assumed he'd taken his own life. The next 10 years remained a mystery, but hospital records showed that Poppo had listed the Salvation Army offices in New York as his home address in 1976 after he was treated for a gunshot wound. Poppo also had several run-ins with the law for trespassing, public intoxication, and sleeping in a public place. Investigators learned that Poppo's family hadn't heard from him in over 40 years, and they assumed he must have ended his own life. Learning this didn't give the investigation team much to work with. Instead, they turned their attention to the evidence they collected and Eugene's family, hoping this angle would provide them with clarity. As the news of the attack started to spread through the media, investigators paid Eugene's family a visit 2 days after his death to find out more about the man. Rudy Eugene was born on February 4, 1981 at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami to Haitian immigrants Ruth Charles and Pellissier Funius. But a few months before Eugene was born, his parents divorced. In 1985, Ruth met and married Melimon Charles. The couple had 2 more sons named Thompson and Markensen. Eugene had a talent for drawing, played football, and always attended church. But in high school, things had taken a wrong turn. Eugene discovered that Melimon was not his biological father. He had also found out that his real father, Pellissier, had died years earlier. Initially, Eugene was angry, but soon forgave his parents. However, the change wouldn't last long. By the age of 16, Eugene had already been charged and arrested for battery. In 2000, after graduating from North Miami High School, Eugene became a wanderer and drifted from job to job. But his problems were starting to escalate. In a span of 5 years, Eugene had been arrested 7 times. His charges ranged from trespassing to possession and dealing of marijuana. In 2004, things took another nasty turn. Eugene had gotten into a violent argument with his mother, Ruth. The police were called to stop the fight, and he was tasered 3 times by police before he was eventually subdued. In 2005, Eugene married his high school sweetheart, Jenny Tuckton. But just 18 months later, Jenny filed for divorce from Eugene. According to Jenny, Eugene had started to grow violent, and she feared for her safety. Once again, Eugene found himself wandering through life without direction. That was until he met Ricky across at an intersection. After 5 months of dating, Cross and Eugene moved in together and remained a couple for 5 years from 2007 until his death in 2012. Cross spoke to investigators and told them about her relationship with Eugene being like any other romantic relationship. However, Cross then told investigators that Eugene started to behave erratically on the morning of May 26, 2012. According to Cross, Eugene had waken up at around 5 a.m. and started looking through their closet for something. He then took his Bible and a brown notebook and kissed her goodbye. When calls to Eugene went unanswered, Cross decided to go out searching for him. Hours had passed, but she saw no sign of him. After calling around to his friends, Cross discovered that he'd paid a visit to a friend the night before. She provided police with the name of Frédéric Christian. Christian spoke to police and explained that he received a call from his brother on the evening of May 25, 2012. According to Christian, Eugene had stopped by Christian's brother's house looking for him. According to Christian's brother, Eugene kept repeating that he needed to speak about something, but he never did get to the point. Christian's brother told him that Eugene didn't look right. They never really got to talk about what was troubling Eugene before he left and returned to the apartment he shared with Cross. Christian then explained to police that he heard from another friend that Eugene had turned up at his house at 5:30 a.m. on May 26, 2012. According to Christian, the friend said that Eugene was acting strange again and wanted to go to the Urban Beach Week music festival. When the mutual friend declined due to work commitments, Eugene spent a short while at his friend's home before getting in his car and driving off. Police then asked Christian if Eugene was on any type of drugs that could have caused his violent reaction. Christian told the officers that the hardest drug Eugene did was smoking marijuana. He said that Eugene didn't take pills, not even those prescribed by a pharmacist, and he hardly ever consumed alcohol. Armed with this new information, investigators started to put together a timeline of events. From what they learned, Eugene had been exhibiting strange behavior from the evening before the attack on Ronald Poppo. His behavior was consistent with that of a person who was indulging in a synthetic drug known as bath salts. That's the seemingly innocent name given to a drug that's more commonly known as flakka and can be found in Africa and the Middle East. In recent years, the bath salts epidemic has started to become more popular, especially in Florida. It was known to cause zombie-like behavior in those that consume the drug. Many cases involve people who reported feeling as if their skin was on fire and wanting to be killed after suffering with debilitating hallucinations. It was the belief of investigators that Eugene may have been under the influence of drugs when he suddenly turned violent and attacked Poppo. This became the most plausible reason and was soon making headlines both nationally and internationally. Investigators looked through surveillance footage that captured some of Eugene's moments that fateful Saturday. His car was seen on video parked near Miami Beach. Eugene had sat in his car for about 40 minutes before getting out and walking away from the vehicle. The investigation team then filled in the blanks of Eugene's movements by looking through all official reports of anything strange happening in Miami Beach that day. These included the report of the abandoned car and eyewitness statements from motorists who saw Eugene walking along the causeway naked and swinging from several lampposts. It was then that investigators looked through the footage from the Miami Herald building. At first, it seemed that Eugene was talking normally to Poppo as he slipped on a piece of cardboard on the raised platform. After a short while, they could see that Eugene lunged at Poppo and began grappling with the elderly man. The video showed that several motorists and cyclists had passed by the area. It wasn't until about 5 minutes into the attack that another cyclist named Larry Vega had stopped at the scene. He kept his distance and continued to watch the fight unfold after calling 911. Soon after, police officer Jose Ramirez arrived at the scene. They watched as Ramirez paused, spoke, and then fired a single shot. Soon after, investigators could see that Ramirez opened fire 4 more times before Eugene finally fell limp to the ground. The entire attack lasted a total of 18 minutes. An autopsy was performed on Eugene to verify if their theory was correct. However, the bath salt theory was about to be quashed completely. The autopsy revealed no human flesh in Eugene's digestive system. What the coroner did find, though, was several undigested pills. There were also trace amounts of marijuana found in Eugene's blood. Toxicologist Barry Logan said that the behavior exhibited by Eugene was undoubtedly caused by a synthetic drug and was similar to the side effects of a person who consumed bath salts. However, forensic analysts couldn't find any trace of drugs in his system. Broward County Sheriff Al Lamberti also said that there was the possibility that some new drug that was not yet tested for may have played a role in Eugene's strange behavior. Director of Toxicology at the University of Florida, Dr. Bruce Goldberger, said that the rate at which synthetic drugs were evolving was making it hard for them to keep track of every new drug that was on the market. Despite their sophisticated research methods, there were still some drugs that were new to their field of testing. According to the friends and family, there were two possible reasons for Eugene's strange behavior. The first theory was that Eugene suffered from severe depression. This could have been caused by several factors from his early childhood that progressed into his adult life. These included his loss of identity and a life of poverty. He turned to marijuana and crime as coping mechanisms and looked to other people to find who he really was. His friends believed that his wandering mind eventually led him to having a mental breakdown. The other theory was started by gossip mongers within the Haitian community of Miami. Coming from a Haitian background, many believed that Eugene had become possessed by an evil spirit that fed off his growing anger. It was also that spirit that caused him to have such violent reactions to people. These whispers often followed Ruth in the weeks after Eugene's death. But the pain of the entire incident did not end there for Eugene's family and friends. Ruth had always been a spiritual woman, and she raised her boys in a similar manner. Eugene, in particular, was very religious and had a strong belief in God. However, the news of Eugene's death and the manner in which it occurred caused many churches to turn the family away. When Ruth did eventually find a church, the committee had told her just 2 days before the service would be held that the congregation did not feel comfortable having Eugene's body in their place of worship. Ruth, who had always been true to her faith, now found all the doors closed in her face. The funeral home eventually agreed to hold Eugene's funeral service in their chapel. It was attended by those who remained closest to Eugene and wanted to remember who he was before the events of May 26, 2012. In the months after the attack, Ronald Poppo underwent several reconstructive facial surgeries. However, he remained permanently disfigured and blind due to the extent of the injuries. The story of Poppo's survival, despite the attack, pulled at the heartstrings of the public. A fund was set up and over $100,000 was raised to pay for his medical costs. In the months that followed, Poppo regained his health. He gained about 50 pounds and learned how to dress himself, feed himself, shower, and shave all over again. He was also allowed to stay on at the medical facility indefinitely so that he could be properly taken care of by medical staff.
We're here to talk today about Mr. Ronald Poppo, who you've all become familiar with in the last few weeks. I'm very pleased to say that Mr. Poppo is doing very well today. I just left his room. We got his permission to talk to you all about his medical condition. He's pleased to report to all of you that he's feeling well. He's eating, he's walking around with physical therapy, he's talking with us. He's had quite a bit of surgery already by Dr. Casira here to my right, and there's still quite a bit more to go. But he actually, before I left the room today, he asked me if I'd be watching the game tonight, and he told me, "Go Heat."
Poppo was also gifted a guitar and had since learned to play the instrument in his spare time. In a video, he thanked the community and police for helping save his life.
Yeah, just generally thanks for contributing and helping out. People in my predicament need to be helped out. And I'm sure there's other people also that have the same type of predicament. I thank the outpouring of people in the community. I will always be grateful for that.
In July 2012, Poppo spoke to police and recounted what happened that Saturday afternoon.
For a very short amount of time, I thought he was a good guy, but he just went and turned berserk. He apparently didn't have a good day at the beach, and he was coming back. And I guess he took it out on me or something. I don't know. He smashed my face into the sidewalk. My face was all patched up. My eyes got plucked out. He was strangling me in wrestling holds. At the same time he was picking my eyes out, he was strangling me in wrestling holds.
After attempting to strangle Poppo in several ways, Eugene then grabbed his head and bashed it into the pavement repeatedly. Investigators were still curious, though, as to whether Poppo had ever met Eugene. According to Poppo, Eugene and he had met briefly during a feeding for the homeless, but had no interaction other than that. Poppo said he seemed fairly friendly on that day as well. This meeting was also confirmed by Frédéric Christian, who said he and Eugene met Poppo, who seemed like a kind and gentle man, while they were helping with a community feeding project for the homeless. Other than that, there was no connection between the two men. Following the hype caused by the attack in May 2012, Ronald Poppo has refused to grant any further interviews with reporters and doesn't want to continue reliving the moment of the attack. There has been no news about Poppo since his interview in 2012. His last known whereabouts were at the medical facility at Jackson Memorial Hospital. Whether Poppo had reconnected with his family remains unknown. As for the family and friends of Rudy Eugene, they're still reeling from the shock of what happened on that fateful Saturday afternoon. It remains difficult to live with the constant whispers made by those who only learned about him from the media reports. His girlfriend, Ricky Across, believed that what happened to him may have been something supernatural.
Something was done to him. I knew that from day one, because he would have never, ever, ever did nothing like this. I mean, I feel sorry for Ronald Poppo. I mean, my condolences and everything go out to him, because, you know, he's a victim in all this as well. But I know that, you know, that wasn't Rudy, and I just miss him. And I will always love Rudy.
She still wishes that one day she'd be able to dream about him, and in that dream, he could tell her what happened that day. Today's case, no doubt, has raised many questions. It's a baffling mystery the way the human mind works and what drives people to commit the crimes they do. It's so sad, both for the victim Ronald Poppo to suffer such a traumatic attack, and for the family of Rudy Eugene to pick up the shattered pieces of their lives. So today we ask you, do you believe it was possible Rudy Eugene suffered a severe mental breakdown and this wasn't a drug-induced frenzy? Could the factors of his personal life have boiled over to such a point that it drove him literally insane? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you found today's video interesting, please consider subscribing to our channel, hit that like button, and share our videos with other crime aficionados. Also, if you have any crime story that you'd like us to cover, please leave us a message in the comments. Until next time, stay safe.